The dozens of shootings scattered across the city this weekend, most hitting the south side the hardest, including 81-year-old great-grandmother Iola Barres.
Old lady doing pretty good, and I thank God.
Neither Iola nor her 34-year-old grandson Sylvester, who were both shot, suffered serious injuries Friday night, both sitting on her porch mourning the death of her daughter.
Ain't he got shot?
Iola's other daughter, Sylvester's mother, Mary, still can't get over the shooting of two innocent people.
We need to put those guns down. And if you're going to get somebody, go to them. Don't hurt other innocent people. Go to school, get an education.
According to the best of my abilities.
At his inauguration today, Mayor Emanuel devoted every word to finding a solution to the city violence.
The faces of these lost and unconnected young men and women are often invisible until we see them in a mugshot as the victim or the perpetrator of senseless violence.
The whole city should be waking up saying, what are we going to do, from the neighborhood to the houses, to the parents, to the young people, to the mayor, to the city council, everybody. This is craziness to live in this kind of war zone.
What do you say to the person who pulled the trigger there?
I said, turn yourself in. Out here, you keep sitting out here shooting. You have 3 county alternatives to go to. County morgue, county jail, or county hospital. Which do you want to go to?
WGN Sean Lewis reporting. Body found in a trash bin last week on the west side, identified as a Wheeling man. 25-year-old Michael Grund was pronounced dead at the scene Thursday at 14th and Avers. This was across the street from the Hornbeam Playlot Park. Cook County Medical Examiner's Office says it needs more tests to find the cause and the manner of death there.
It was a violent weekend in Chicago. 9 people are dead and over 50 were left injured following a string of shootings in the city over the 4th of July weekend. The shootings included a teenager who was shot in his car, a woman in her 60s hit by a stray bullet on her own front porch, and 2 people killed and 3 wounded in police-involved shootings, and those are just a few of them. There were so many killings and shootings that even local media had trouble keeping up. The Chicago Tribune focused just on a 4-hour period on Sunday afternoon, wherein just that small period of time, 4 people were killed and 25 were injured. The shootings mean more than 1,100 people have been shot in the city since the beginning of the year. Joining me to discuss this and more is HuffPost senior political economy reporter Zach Carter. Zach, stunning news, or disappointing news out of Chicago, devastating news. I can't say surprising news given everything we've seen over the last few years. What happened?
I just think it's really depressing, Mark, that we've done these Monday morning Chicago look-backs about dozens of people being shot in Chicago like 4 times this year. And I'm not on this show every Monday. So it's happening all the time. When you talk about 1,100 people being shot in the 3rd largest American city in the course of 6 months, essentially, that just seems unfathomable to me. And it's not like the basic problems aren't pretty clear. I mean, the economy needs to be better, and we need to have fewer guns, and those things keep not happening.
You know, when I talk to criminologists, when I talk to area specialists, they say in great frustration, we know what can prevent this. We know what works. We can literally track in cities like Chicago, Philadelphia, and elsewhere when the violence is going to happen, when the escalation is going to happen. They can track it based on weather patterns. They can track it based on the day of the week. They can track it based on holidays. Yet we don't intervene at that level. And then even perhaps in a more significant way, I would argue a more fundamental way, we know what works in terms of eliminating this stuff. Violence ends when people have jobs. Violence ends when people have access to education. Violence ends when there are fewer guns in the streets. And yet we haven't had the political will in places like Chicago to do so. When will the turning point be?
I think it's particularly difficult because people outside, Chicago was affected by policies that happen outside of Chicago, both at the state level and the national level. When you talk about education policy, a lot of those decisions are in the hands of the local government, but a lot of them are in the state government's hands, and they're in the federal government's hands. That is certainly true for gun policy. I mean, you can ban guns in Chicago. Chicago does ban guns. They have very strict gun control laws in Chicago, but you can just buy a gun somewhere nearby and come into Chicago with it, and then the gun is there. So you need to have a more cohesive federal approach to the policy making, and that hasn't really happened in Washington for several years now. And I mean, particularly on economic issues, we just have this complete theology about how markets are supposed to work that just doesn't take into account the way human beings actually behave, and what this sort of theocratic approach to the economy is doing.